The emergency ward buzzed with urgency, machines beeping, stretchers rolling, voices calling orders over the constant hum of fluorescent lights. Nurses moved quickly between patients, balancing calm efficiency with quiet exhaustion. Maya Johnson, a black nurse with 8 years of experience, stood at the foot of a stretcher that had just been rushed in. The patient, a middle-aged man, was sweating heavily, his breathing shallow, his skin mottled with a strange discoloration. Dr. Peters, a young physician in a freshly pressed white coat, strode in, exuding the brisk confidence of someone used to being in charge. He glanced over the charts, barely acknowledging Maya's presence. "I've seen this before," he announced. "Likely cardiac complications. Let's run the usual tests." Maya hesitated, her eyes fixed on the patient's unusual rash. She had seen something like it once before, buried in the pages of a case study she'd read late at night. Quietly, she spoke up. "Doctor, I don't think it's cardiac. The pattern of the rash, the fever, this looks more like an infection, maybe systemic." Dr. Peters stopped writing orders long enough to glance at her. His smile was polite but dismissive, the kind reserved for a child who had spoken out of turn. "Thank you, Nurse Johnson," he said smoothly. "But let's leave the diagnostics to the doctors, shall we?" The words landed like a stone. A few other staff members exchanged quick glances, but no one spoke. Maya felt the sting of being silenced, again. She pressed her lips together, nodding slightly, even though frustration burned in her chest. As the team hurried to carry out the doctor's instructions, Maya lingered at the bedside. The patient's hand trembled as it reached for hers. She squeezed it gently, whispering so only he could hear. "Hang in there. I see you." Her instinct screamed she was right. But in that moment, her voice had been pushed aside, just another nurse's opinion in a room where authority drowned out experience. And yet, deep down, she knew, this case was far from over. The break room was quiet, a rare pocket of stillness in the storm of the ER. Maya sat at the corner table, her coffee untouched, the bitterness of Dr. Peters' words still lingering louder than the machines outside. She had learned long ago how to mask frustration. A calm face. A steady tone. Patients needed that from her. Colleagues expected it. But behind her practiced composure lived years of being underestimated. Maya had entered nursing not because it was easy, but because she loved medicine. She had been the girl who borrowed science books from the library until her backpack tore at the seams, the student who stayed late in labs just to watch how cells changed under a microscope. Medical school had been her dream, but family finances forced her onto a quicker path, nursing. And she was proud of that path. 8 years in the ER had taught her more about people, pain, and resilience than any textbook ever could. She had an instinct for patience, an ability to catch subtle signs others missed. It wasn't magic. It was experience, sharpened by empathy and relentless study. Yet time after time, she was told the same thing: leave the diagnosing to the doctors. As if her knowledge carried less weight because of the title on her badge, or the color of her skin. She glanced at the chart she'd quietly copied down from the new patient, the rash, the fever, the unstable vitals. Her gut screamed at her, this wasn't cardiac. It was something else, something dangerous if untreated. But speaking up again would mean challenging Peters in front of the team. And that never ended well. Still, she couldn't silence the thought, what if I'm right? What if waiting costs him his life? Maya folded the chart against her chest, her jaw set. She didn't need recognition. She didn't even need thanks. All she wanted was for the man in that bed to live. Hours dragged on in the ER, the fluorescent lights as relentless as the beeping monitors. Dr. Peters had ordered a battery of cardiac tests, ECGs, blood work, scans, all of which came back inconclusive. The patient's condition, however, was anything but stable. The man lay drenched in sweat, his breathing more labored than before. The strange blotchy rash had spread across his chest and arms. His blood pressure dropped steadily, despite the fluids being pumped into him. Dr. Peters frowned at the monitors, his jaw tight. "Strange," he muttered. "This doesn't fit cardiac failure. Maybe it's pulmonary. Let's try a different protocol." The team moved quickly, adjusting medications, preparing equipment. Maya stayed close to the patient, noting every change. She could feel his skin burning with fever, his pulse thready and weak. The signs matched the diagnosis she had suggested earlier, but her words still hung in the air, ignored. Finally, she spoke again, her tone respectful but firm. "Doctor, with respect, the patient's deterioration looks like a systemic infection. The rash, the fever, the collapse, it fits sepsis more than heart failure. Peter snapped his head toward her, irritation flashing in his eyes. Nurse Johnson, I've already said, let me handle the diagnostics. You do your job, I'll do mine. The words stung, sharp and dismissive. A couple of interns shifted uncomfortably, their eyes flicking between Maya and the struggling patient. But no one dared contradict the attending physician. Minutes ticked by. The man's oxygen levels plummeted, alarms shrieking into the sterile air. Peters barked new orders, but his frustration was clear, his theories weren't working. Maya felt her stomach knot as she tightened her grip on the patient's trembling hand. She leaned close, whispering softly, "Hold on. Please. Hold on." Her instincts screamed louder than the alarms, they were running out of time. The monitors erupted in a chorus of alarms. The patient's heart rate dropped, his blood pressure crashed, and the rash across his chest had deepened to a frightening shade. The room jolted into motion, nurses rushing to prepare medications, an intern fumbling with 4 lines, Dr. Peters barking rapid orders with the clipped urgency of someone losing control. Push another round of fluids. Increase oxygen. Prepare for intubation. He shouted, his voice tight with panic. Maya's own pulse raced, but her focus sharpened. She had seen this before, once, years ago, a case study buried in a medical journal. Rare, yes. But unmistakable. She stepped forward, her voice louder now, cutting through the chaos. "Doctor, listen to me. This is sepsis with a rare meningococcal presentation. The fluids won't save him, he needs the right antibiotics, now." Dr. Peters barely glanced at her. "Nurse Johnson, enough." He snapped, his face flushed. "You are out of line." But Maya didn't move. The patient's life was slipping away before her eyes, and she refused to watch silently. "If we wait any longer, he won't make it. Check his labs, the elevated white count, the rash, the fever. This isn't cardiac, it isn't pulmonary. It's infection. You know I'm right." Her words cut through the room, sharp and undeniable. For a beat, the chaos stilled. The interns exchanged nervous looks, and one of them, hands shaking, quickly pulled up the lab results on the screen. "Doctor." The intern stammered. "She's right. The labs fit her diagnosis. It's sepsis." Dr. Peters froze, his confidence cracking. The truth was in front of him, undeniable. His orders had done nothing. The patient was circling the edge. For the first time, Peters turned fully toward Maya. His voice was low, stripped of certainty. "What do you suggest?" Maya didn't hesitate. "Broad-spectrum antibiotics. Full sepsis protocol. Now." The room exploded back into motion, this time following her lead. And for the first time that night, hope flickered back into the room. The orders flew as if a switch had flipped. Nurses rushed to hang the 4th antibiotics, others prepped additional fluids according to the sepsis protocol. The interns moved with new urgency, their eyes darting back to Maya for confirmation as much as to Dr. Peters. Maya stayed at the bedside, steadying the patient's trembling arm as the first dose dripped into his vein. Her eyes tracked the monitors, still perilously low, but holding. Minutes passed like hours. Then, slowly, the numbers began to change. Blood pressure climbing. Heart rate evening out. Oxygen saturation rising. The shrill alarms quieted into softer tones, then into silence. The patient's breathing steadied, his grip loosening around Maya's hand as the fever began to break. A collective breath swept the room. Relief, palpable and heavy. One of the interns whispered, "He's stabilizing." Another nurse smiled faintly, shaking her head in awe. Dr. Peters stood frozen at the foot of the bed, his stethoscope hanging limp around his neck. His carefully polished confidence had been stripped bare. He glanced at the monitors, then at Maya. "You were right," he said quietly, almost to himself. Then, louder, "You saved his life." Maya didn't gloat, didn't smile. She simply adjusted the patient's blanket, her movements calm and precise. "We saved his life," she corrected, though her eyes held his for a moment, steady, unyielding, making sure the lesson sank deeper than pride. Peters looked away, shame etched into the slump of his shoulders. Around them, the staff moved with a new energy, whispering quietly but casting glances toward Maya, not as just a nurse, but as the one who had cracked the case the doctor couldn't. At the bedside, the patient stirred faintly, his lips parting in the first weak sign of recovery. Maya reached for his hand again, and this time her smile was soft, almost hidden. She had been silenced, ignored, dismissed. But in the end, her voice was the one that mattered. The ER had quieted, its chaos replaced by the steady rhythm of monitors and the soft shuffle of nurses tidying equipment. The patient now lay resting, his color returning, his chest rising and falling with even breaths. Dr. Peters stood at the bedside, his hands in his pockets, shoulders heavy with the weight of the night. He watched the man breathe, the same man he had nearly lost, because he hadn't listened. Maya stood across from him, recording vitals on the chart, her posture calm, professional. She didn't look at Peters, didn't demand recognition. She simply did her work, the same as always. He cleared his throat. The words came haltingly, stripped of the arrogance that had marked his earlier tone. "You were right from the start," he admitted. His gaze flicked to hers, just long enough to see the steadiness in her eyes. "I should have listened. I let my pride get in the way. And he almost paid for it." Maya didn't soften immediately. She closed the chart and set it aside before answering. "It's not about pride. It's about patience. If we don't listen to each other, people get hurt." Her words were simple, but they landed heavier than any reprimand. Peters nodded, his jaw tightening as the truth sank in. He glanced at the patient again, then back at Maya. For the first time, his expression carried not dismissal, but respect. "You saved his life. I'll make sure the rest of the team knows that." Maya gave a small nod. "Thank you, doctor. But let's make sure the patient knows first." Together, they stood for a moment longer, the hum of the monitors between them. For Peters, it was a reckoning. For Maya, it was something deeper, proof that her voice, long underestimated, could not be silenced when lives were on the line. A week later, the staff meeting gathered in the hospital's conference room. The walls buzzed with quiet chatter as nurses, interns, and physicians filled the seats, flipping through agendas and sipping burnt coffee from styrofoam cups. When the chief of medicine stepped up to the podium, the room hushed. "Before we begin," she said, her voice carrying weight, "I want to acknowledge something important." Maya sat near the back, her notepad balanced on her lap. She hadn't expected her name to be called, but then the chief's eyes found hers. Last week, during a critical case, a patient's life was saved because of Nurse Maya Johnson's vigilance and expertise. While protocols failed, her observation and insistence on an alternative diagnosis made the difference. This hospital is proud to have her on our team. The room filled with applause. Some clapped politely, others with genuine warmth. A few looked surprised, as though re-seeing her for the first time. Dr. Peters rose slowly from his chair. All eyes shifted as he walked toward the front, his face solemn. He stopped beside Maya, cleared his throat, and spoke so everyone could hear. "She didn't just help," he said. "She solved the case I couldn't. I ignored her, and I shouldn't have. Maya deserves not only credit, but our respect. She taught me a lesson I won't forget." The applause swelled louder. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she stayed composed, nodding politely. Recognition wasn't what she worked for, her patients were. But in this moment, in front of the people who had so often overlooked her, the acknowledgement mattered. As the meeting moved on, Maya allowed herself a small, quiet smile. Not of triumph, but of affirmation. She had always known her worth. Now, finally, so did they.